Hiring? Every business needs great people, and a better way to find them. Something better than posting your job online and just praying for the right people to see it. ZipRecruiter learns what you're looking for, identifies people with the right experience, and invites them to apply to your job. These invitations have revolutionized how you find your next hire. In fact, 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. And ZipRecruiter doesn't stop there. They even spotlight the strongest applications you receive, so you never miss a great match. The right candidates are out there. ZipRecruiter is how you find them. Businesses of all sizes trust ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs. Right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Stephen A. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Stephen A. ZipRecruiter.com/Stephen A. That's with a PH, not a V. That's ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio, 250 plus markets across the United States of America, from New York to LA and everything in between. Plus, Sirius XM, ESPN Radio, Channel 80. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll get into the NBA playoffs and that sensational, outstanding, unbelievable performance by the great one himself, LeBron James. I'll make sure to get into the Philadelphia 76ers because I got to tell you, it rakes my damn nerves how they blew that game last night against Boston. I'll talk to you about who deserves the credit and who deserves the blame. Obviously, there's some big-time games coming up. Golden State visits New Orleans. Utah is tied 1-1 with the great Houston Rockets, who's supposed to dethrone the Golden State Warriors. We'll be talking about that. But obviously, as I get ready to hit the road for these playoffs this weekend, and I'll be on the road all weekend long, I needed to take a moment to reflect on something that I'm feeling. It's a hard situation for me to be in because the reality of the situation is I'm not as happy as I'd like to be. Am I miserable? No. Am I disgusted? Absolutely not. Do I find myself sitting here looking at this moribund franchise known as the New York Knicks and saying to myself, damn it, they screwed up again? Not quite. David Fizdale can coach. David Fizdale's a good man. Wife is lovely, by the way. What a beautiful woman. He certainly overachieved there, too. David Fizdale is somebody that got hosed in Memphis. Should not have been dismissed, even though he probably was happy that he got dismissed because he didn't want to be there any longer the way that organization was going and Marc Gasol was acting. All of that may be true. But as I sit here today, I owe it to you, all of you, especially native New Yorkers like myself who are obviously listening to this show. I owe it to you to be very, very candid and honest. I'm not excited as I'd like to be. David Fizdale was my second choice to be head coach of the New York Knicks. My first was Mark Jackson. I'm not going to wax poetically about why because I've already told y'all that ad nauseum. The New York Knicks don't need coaching as much as they need a culture changer. To me, anybody they picked was capable of coaching this team. And there is no denying that. And make no mistake about it, when we look at coaching credentials, David Fizdale has it. He was an assistant in Golden State in 2003, 2004. He was an assistant under Mike Woodson for 4 seasons from 2004 to 2008 in Atlanta. He was an assistant coach for an additional 6 years under Pat Riley and ultimately Eric Spoelstra before becoming associate head coach in the 2014-2015 seasons. He was there for all 4 straight finals appearances by LeBron James, D. Wade, Chris Bosh, and the Miami Heat. And 2 championships came from that. In his first year in Memphis, they were 43-39 and actually lost 4-2 in the first round of a playoff series against the San Antonio Spurs when David Fizdale made himself famous for going off about the officiating and how you're not going to rook him because officials were giving calls to the veterans and to Greg Popovich instead of his squad led by his young coaching self. when he said take that for data and pounded the desk and walked off the press conference. David Fizdale is not to be questioned in terms of his credentials. He's a good man. He's a good coach. We should all stand behind him and root for him. There is no question about that. Having said all of that, his hiring is also indicative of what's really, really going on here. And what's really, really going on here is that the New York Knicks have given you they've given you no indication that they're interested in changing their culture. They've given you no indication that they're interested in altering the way they do business. James Dolan is the head of the snake. Steve Mills is there to do his bidding. As president of basketball operations, no disrespect to Steve Mills. Not saying that in a bad way. Scott Perry obviously is under Steve Mills. And now you've chosen David Fizdale to be a voice for New Yorkers. To represent the New York Knicks in such a way where it's not about representing James Dolan. It's about representing the New York Knickerbocker fan base. That did not happen. And instead, what we have is a guy in David Fizdale who I believe is going to do a very good job based on the talent that he has available to him. He's going to do his part. But I'm afraid it's not going to amount to much unless Steve Mills is able to get him a roster. Now, obviously, if you're Steve Mills, why did you do this? Because this man coached LeBron James. Because he's got an in with LeBron James. As a result, LeBron James may very well give you a meeting once free agency arrives. And as a result, you might have a shot to get LeBron James. That's what people are deducing from all of this. I'll take it a step further because I believe David Fizdale could coach. And I think that him being the face of a franchise is a good thing. It's just that it's the Knicks we're talking about here. So good, damn it, ain't good enough. You needed somebody that would speak on behalf of New Yorkers and our frustration that has been percolating for years. Years. And the fact that Mark Jackson didn't get this job not only saddens me because it's clear he's being blackballed. That's what it feels like to me. It feels clear to me. That's my feeling. Not getting that from any inside source of information. That's how I personally feel. Because the last time we saw Mark Jackson coaching, he was 51-31. They lost a 7-game series to the Clippers in the first round, a year after they went to the semifinals. And if he can't get the New York Knicks job, even though I think he'd be better suited for the Oklahoma City job, who's decided to keep Billy Donovan, if he can't get the New York Knicks job, I don't know what job Mark Jackson can get as a coach. And I happen to have it on very good authority that even Joe Lacob felt he should have gotten a job as the head coach of the New York Knicks. And Joe Lacob was the one that fired him from Golden State. So I'm looking at this right now and I'm like, damn. What does this man have to do to get a head coaching job? In New York? In this city? That Dolan presides over this franchise? The way that he has? For 20 years? And still, he's not your choice. Ladies and gentlemen, if David Fizdale is listening anywhere, my brother, this ain't about you. I think you're a damn good coach. Happy to have you. If this was anywhere else, you wouldn't hear these words coming out of my mouth because it's not about David Fizdale. I believe in him. Again, I believe he got hosed in Memphis. I believe he got a raw deal, even though I think he was happy to be out. And I know the relationship that he has with players. I don't want to hear some nonsense, some crap about how, oh my goodness, you didn't get along with Marc Gasol, so how would that bode for you? Because you couldn't get along with him. So now there's a question about your relationship with players. I know plenty of players that love themselves some David Fizdale and respect the hell out of him. I ain't worried about that. And he can go to Latvia and talk to Kristaps Porzingis and all of this other stuff. Kristaps Porzingis is going to come play. He's going to do what he can. But there's only but so much he's going to be able to do with the roster that they have, which means that Steve Mills and Scott Perry got to get on their game and get some players up in here. And in fairness to them, it ain't their damn fault. It was Phil Jackson that drafted Frank Ntilikina instead of Donovan Mitchell. It was Phil Jackson that drafted Frank Ntilikina instead of Dennis Smith Jr. It was Phil Jackson that drafted Frank Ntilikina instead of Malik Monk. That wasn't them. So we get it and we understand it. We see what Donovan is doing in Utah. My rookie of the year. We see what Malik Monk is doing in Charlotte. We see what Dennis Smith is doing in Dallas. And an 11-time champion that is known as Phil Jackson, who is clearly asleep at the wheel or high in Montana, depending on whether or not you want to listen to Shaquille O'Neal's Hall of Fame speech. He clearly wasn't on his game. Period. So it is what it is. But forgive me if I'm a bit emotional. It's not a knock against David Fizdale. I believe he will do all he can do. And I believe if it comes down to a question of coaching, I have no problem with David Fizdale being here. He will get the job done. My problem is I don't think David Fizdale is accomplished enough or a big enough personality to ward off James Dolan. And the insidious, contagious effect the business of Madison Square Garden has on the New York Knicks franchise. That is my concern. That is my concern. And for those of you out there across the country, yes, Stephen A., the Knicks ain't relevant right now. So what? Damn it, I'm emotional right now. Deal with it. David Fizdale was my second choice. I am not upset because he's the coach. I'm upset because of what I fear his hire is indicative of. His hire is indicative of James Dolan wanting to do business as usual inside the corridors of Madison Square Garden. And under his stewardship, that just hasn't worked for this basketball franchise. I sincerely hope that Fizdale, based on the great reporting of Adrian Wojnarowski, who reported that Fizdale has agreed to a 4-year deal to be the next head coach for the New York Knicks, I sincerely hope that James Dolan and the business of the New York Knicks do not get in the way of David Fizdale. I will be watching. Ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake about it. This is personal to me. I'm a native New Yorker. I'm a lifelong New York Knicks fan. Two things go with Stephen A. Smith, the Yankees and the Knicks. I am completely and totally concerned about the culture. The only reason Fizdale wasn't my first choice for the New York Knicks is because of a culture that has existed 19 years before he ever arrived here. That's all. Since 1999. It's the only reason. If it wasn't for that, I'd be ecstatic that David Fizdale was the coach here. Hell, I might end up being ecstatic when all is said and done. But that's only if we don't see business as usual. Because I don't care what city you're from or what city you're in. When you see such an alarming level of ineptitude sifting through a franchise like a virus, seemingly into perpetuity, just endless, it rakes your last damn nerves. And that is what it has done to me. I feel sorry for my brother Mark Jackson, but he'll be all right. He's doing an excellent job for ABC and ESPN calling games. And last time I checked, his employment ain't in jeopardy. He ain't going anywhere. It's a damn shame, though, when you see some of the people getting coaching jobs. And this man can't get one. It's very suspicious. But even that I'll leave to for another day. Right now, my concern is the culture. I've said what I've had to say on this matter. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. LeBron James was sensational last night. If you hear monotone, sort of tenor in my voice and what have you, sort of matter of fact, very pragmatic, it's because, ladies and gentlemen, y'all can sit there and act surprised all y'all want. Y'all know better. When LeBron James goes up against the Toronto Raptors, it's just different. Ladies and gentlemen, LeBron James dropped 43 last night with 14 assists. He might as well have scored 70 points. That's how everybody's treating it. You know why you're treating it that way? Because it's the Toronto Raptors. Every now and then, a star is beyond great when it comes to going up against a specific opponent. LeBron going up against Victor Oladipo and Nate McMillan's Indiana Pacers was different than the LeBron you're seeing. I believe LeBron had a 45-point game against the Indiana Pacers. I believe he had two 40-plus games against the Indiana Pacers. If I remember correctly, I believe that I'm right about that. Okay? Guess what? So what? So what? The fact of the matter is the games were still ultra competitive. You know why they were ultra competitive? Because LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, despite LeBron's greatness, Victor Oladipo, Lance Stevenson, and these dudes for the Indiana Pacers were not just going to sit idly by and take a backseat. They weren't going to do it. They were not going to do it. And they fought to the bitter end. Toronto doesn't do that against LeBron. Against anybody else, yes. Against LeBron, they just don't do that. Palms get sweaty. Backsides get tight. It literally paralyzes them. They see LeBron coming like a Mack truck, and they freeze. It's what they do against him. Everybody's wondering whether or not Toronto has a chance of winning this series now that the Cleveland Cavaliers took the first two games on the road in Toronto. I'm wondering whether or not they're going to get swept. That's how bad it is for Toronto right now. They better win game 3. If Cleveland goes up 3-0 in this series, LeBron ain't going back to the North. They ain't going back to Toronto. I can promise you that. I can promise you that. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. The other game I want to get into, these Boston Celtics are special. See, these are one of the other reasons that I look at the Knicks and I go off about them because, my God, what the New York Knicks haven't been able to do in 19, 20 years, Boston did in less than 5. When you look at this squad right now, ladies and gentlemen, Jaylen Brown comes back. He plays about 23 minutes or whatever the case may be, chips in 12 points. But you look at Jason Tatum. You look at this kid, Terry Rozier out of Louisville, third-year guard out of Louisville. Look at Al Horford and the way he's playing, the serious, the experienced, savvy veteran. You look at their perimeter shooting. You look at the toughness, the pit bull mentality of a Marcus Smart. I can't say enough about what I'm seeing from Boston, not to mention the exceptional coaching of one of the great coaches in all of basketball right now in Brad Stevens. I just can't say enough. But I don't find myself thinking about Boston as much following last night's win over the 76ers in game 2. I find myself thinking about the Sixers and wondering whether or not Brett Brown is going to keep his job if they lose this series. Brett Brown has suffered a lot. He's been subjected to an alarming level of ineptitude because the Philadelphia 76ers gave him no talent to work with his first 3 years on the job. It was so bad that Rick Carlisle, the president of the Coaches Association, along with Pat Riley, literally came to his defense publicly to speak up on his behalf because of the disastrous leadership that was being shown by Philadelphia's hierarchy while they bragged about the process. Greg Popovich spoke up on his behalf of his former assistant as well. But let me tell you something. Last night, and I'm talking strictly about the first 2 games of this series, Brett Brown has been flagrantly outcoached. And last night was almost unforgivable. You are up 22 points in the first half. You are up 19 with 3 minutes and like 43 seconds left in the second quarter, if I remember correctly. And the Boston Celtics pull within 5 by the time the quarter's over. A 3 from Marcus Smart. A 3 from Terry Rozier. An alley-oop dunk to Jaylen Brown. A 3 from Jaylen Brown. What does Brett Brown do? Does he make any substitutions? No. Does he slow down the pace? No. Does he call for the ball to go inside to Joel Embiid? No, he does not. Does he even call a timeout? No, he does not. With this team and its youth, we can look at Ben Simmons and talk about what an atrocious performance that was last night. You're 6'10", with those ball handling and passing skills and your athletic ability and your ability to finish at the basket, and you score 1 point on 0 for 4 shooting in 30 minutes on the floor. That is nothing short of disgraceful. And I love Ben Simmons. He's LeBron part 2. Once he gets a jump shot, he is a superstar in the making. That was an atrocious performance. He shouldn't have a smile on his face. He shouldn't show himself in public for the rest of the day. He shouldn't be seen until he makes amends on the court Saturday afternoon in Philadelphia. And by the way, I will be there. That was just an atrocious performance. But I believe in him, and I believe he will make amends because he's that great. Even though he's not my rookie of the year, it's Donovan Mitchell. But Brett Brown is who I'm looking at. This man was an assistant coach of the great Popovich for years. This man's a champion as an assistant coach. This man has been through the muck and mire. He's been through the grind. He's not some rookie. Ben Simmons is. Brett Brown has been here before. You don't know to call a timeout? You don't know to get the ball inside? You don't know to dictate pace? Unforgivable. Philadelphia lost game 2 last night in the first half. Right now, I'm going to say it. They're on the brink of elimination. They're on the brink of elimination. Because they got to win this game 3 or it's over. It's over. Philadelphia 76ers don't win game 3 Saturday. It is over. And if they lose this series, 4-1, 4-0, I'm Brian Colangelo. I'm looking at Brett Brown for his job. I'll explain one of the biggest reasons why in just a minute. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here on ESPN Radio. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
Washing my nose, oh yeah.
I'm a shower curtain, and I do one thing. Keep water from leaking everywhere. So you see why I feel useless compared to Geico, who does so much more. Like, not only could Geico save you money, but they've been around for over 75 years. And they give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or on the Geico app. And they've got a 97% customer satisfaction rating. They do all this while I have to listen to this chucklehead. Oh, good, he stopped.
Washing my toes.
Oh, great, an encore.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more. You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
31 minutes past hour number 1 back here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. ESPN Radio. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Let me get back to the Sixers and Celtics game last night. Because I told you, Brett Brown, head coach for the 76ers, his job might be on the line if this stuff continues. Listen to me think, and I want to emphasize this. I am in no way advocating his departure. I like Brett Brown. I respect him. I respect the job that he has done when he's had talent. I respect his endurance and his intestinal fortitude dealing with what he had to deal with while this process was being implemented and he was subjected to the disgusting tendencies of Sixers ownership and beyond. The trust the process. How y'all feeling about trust the process now? Down 0-2 to Boston. Their process seems to be a hell of a lot better than what the 76ers process is right now. But I digress. Here's the point that I'm trying to make. The reason why Brett Brown has to be careful. Ladies and gentlemen, the number 3 pick in last year's NBA draft is a gentleman by the name of Jason Tatum, who's a 19-year-old, 6'9" kid who can handle the ball, shoot from inside or out, and defends. and is a big-time candidate for Rookie of the Year honors in case no one's been paying attention. He's that good. Who had the number 1 overall pick? Who did a trade with Boston to get the number 1 pick and slide Boston to 3? And who did they take? The Philadelphia 76ers took Markelle Fultz. That's what they did. And let me tell you something right now. That's a problem. That's a problem right now. Because I'm going to tell y'all right now, in case y'all haven't been paying attention. This is last June 19th. Philadelphia 76ers agreed to swap top picks. Philly expected to take Markelle Fultz. So basically, Danny Ainge wanted Jason Tatum all along, but fooled the 76ers into thinking they'd take Markelle Fultz. As a result, the Celtics, in possession of the number 1 pick, agreed to swap numbers 1 and swap the numbers 1 and 3 picks because Philadelphia had the 3rd pick. Philadelphia obviously took Markelle Fultz. Boston took Jason Tatum. Who's looking better right now? Now, granted, Markelle Fultz got injured. And granted, he missed 68 games. And by the way, when he came back, he looked pretty damn impressive. Why is he on the bench? For what? Ben Simmons plays 30 minutes for you and scores 1 point? And you couldn't find it within your coaching soul to make sure that Markelle Fultz got in the game? With the kind of Energizer Bunny and the scoring tendencies that he proved to have when he's on a basketball court, you couldn't find a way to put him in the game? If you are Brian Colangelo, the general manager for the Philadelphia 76ers, how are you looking at Brett Brown today? Brian Colangelo wasn't the GM when Joel Embiid got drafted. It was obvious that Ben Simmons was your pick in 2016. Stevie Wonder could have drafted him. The first real decision that Brian Colangelo had to make as general manager of the Philadelphia 76ers was what he was going to do with the number 1 pick. He elected to go in the direction of Fultz, who, by the way, is butt ugly as his shot was at one point because of, for whatever reason, finally overcame those doldrums, stepped on the court, and actually showed he could ball. And against a team of brothers, athletes abound, sharpshooters all over the place, you clearly needing some punch because Zarek can't hit a jump shot when it counts in this series. And Ben Simmons didn't even want to take one. You can't find it in yourself to put Markelle Fultz in the game? These are the kind of decisions that get coaches fired. I want to emphasize and repeat again, I am not advocating for Brett Brown to get fired. I am not disrespecting this man like that. He doesn't deserve that. But if I'm Brian Colangelo, I didn't hire him. If I'm Brian Colangelo, I did draft Markelle Fultz. And if I'm Brian Colangelo, with Jason Tatum balling out the way that he did, for you as the coach to not even find it within your soul to put Markelle Fultz in the game, I'm really looking at you with a raised eyebrow. Now, TJ McConnell came off the bench, hit all 4 of his shots, had a couple of assists. They had a lead when Brett Brown took him out of the game. Even though you can understand why he would put Ben Simmons in there. You got to work through those moments. You got to learn from those moments. I understand that. But somewhere, whether it was for Covington, whether if it was for Saric, whether it was for somebody, you got to find a way to put Markelle Fultz in that game. You got to do it. And the fact that he did it is a problem. And if y'all doubt me, you wait and see. I've been covering the league for over 20 years, 25 to be exact. I'm telling you what I know. Ain't no way in hell. Ain't no way in hell. Brian Colangelo sitting there and like, I'm totally okay. Unless there's some injury Markelle Fultz has that few of us know about or something, ain't no way in hell that Brian Colangelo sitting there saying, it's all right. It's perfectly cool that you didn't insert Markelle Fultz into that game. No way. No way. Say ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Stephen A. Smith Show being brought to you by Vivid Seats, the official ticket partner of ESPN. Download the free Vivid Seats app today to get your tickets. 888-SAY ESPN is always the number to call up. That's 888-729-3776. I'm going to say it one more time. I've been covering this league for a long time. I am not advocating the dismissal of Brett Brown at all. I'm just pointing out a fact. I've seen people get fired for less. Sixers win game 3, or this series is over. And if they lost, this young group flaunting the process all this time will have lost to a team without Kyrie Irving and with Jaylen Brown hobbling. And by the way, the future starts now. We've been talking about the process in Philadelphia. We'll be talking about the process in Boston in a matter of days. By the end of this weekend, to be exact. If the Sixers don't win game 3 Saturday afternoon. Your calls and more in a minute with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
This Mother's Day, distance doesn't mean anything because you can still brighten her day with 24 multicolored roses for $24 from 1-800-Flowers.com. To order, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Plus, ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance with insurance for cars, home, boat, motorcycles, RVs, and commercial vehicles at 1-800-Progressive and Progressive.com. About to go to the phone to 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Thanks again, congratulations to the New York Yankees taking 3 or 4 from the Houston Astros, balling the way that they balled. I was watching TV last night, too. I was rooting for Albert Pujols to get his 3,000th career hit. I've always been fond of Albert Pujols, and he's big time, make no mistake about it. Future Hall of Famer. It was really, really good seeing him. He didn't get the 3,000 hit last night. I can't wait to see what he does. It would have been nice to see him do it at home as opposed to on the road, but it is what it is. Let's go to the phones at 888-SAY-ESPN. Let's get right to it. Let's go to Richard in Manhattan. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Stephen A., LeBron James, please. Bill Russell had Bailey Howell, Satch Sanders, John Havlicek, the Jones boys, Red Auerbach. Kareem had Magic. He had Worthy, Pat Riley. Michael had Scotty. He had Phil Jackson. Who the heck does LeBron James have?
I got a better question for you. Who the hell does LeBron get to play against?
Who's he playing? Oh, he's playing against the best athletes in the world now.
Don't stop that. Just stop that nonsense. That's not what we're asking about here. You know exactly where I'm going because you're knowledgeable enough about the game of basketball to know exactly what the hell I'm asking you. Don't be slick. I asked you who he's going against as it pertains to the Eastern Conference because for years we've lamented the lack of currency, the lack of competitiveness within the Eastern Conference, how unbalanced it is. So much so that even the NBA contemplated changing stuff in terms of Eastern Conference, Western Conference, because of the lack of parity from one conference to another, which you yourself have called up at times in the past and lamented about. So if knowing that is a reality, I ask the question again. Who did he go against?
He's not going against the best competition, but he's still excelling at what he's doing. Stephen A., Bernard King in 1984 had those 2 great series against Detroit and against Boston, 6 games and 7 games.
Yep.
He got into the Hall of Fame for that. You can't even compare what Bernard King has done, what LeBron has been doing.
Wait a minute, Richard. I think that LeBron James is the greatest player in the world. There's nobody that's debating that. But in the same breath, you want me to tell you when I'll let LeBron James off the hook and I'll really, really laud and praise what he's done this year? Not to say I'm taking anything away from him because he was absolutely phenomenal last night and he's been phenomenal through these playoffs. But if they beat Boston, I have nothing to say. Let me ask you this question, Richard. What if he loses to Boston? Without Kyrie. What if he loses to Boston? If Boston advances to the conference finals and he loses to a Boston squad without Kyrie, what are you going to say then?
Well, some of the luster will be taken off. Stephen A., I got one more for you. You're talking about Brett Brown. Brett Brown should be gone.
I didn't say that.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I mean, you said you put him to task.
Yes.
Now, the night before, Houston, Utah. I'd never seen an NBA game like that. There were 3 games. Utah came out and was killing Houston. Houston came back, and Harden was driving the lane, alley-ooping to Capella, passing out to Ariza. They were laughing. They came up and they went up by 12. What did D'Antoni do? He takes Harden out, takes his foot off the gas, and they never recovered after that.
But wait a minute.
That game was all on him.
That was a bad move on D'Antoni's part, one could argue. But considering the way Houston has looked throughout these playoffs, we can't, it happens. And obviously Houston came ready to play, and Donovan Mitchell is a stud with no panic. No, he's not even a rookie as far as I'm concerned. But in the case of Brett Brown in Philadelphia, you trying to tell me the mistake D'Antoni made is comparable to what you saw from Brett Brown last night?
It's because they were at home, and Harden was going off like nobody ever did. I couldn't believe it. He was going through the lane. Did you ever see a guy driving like that?
Listen,
unstoppable.
Listen, I don't agree with you there. I don't think any mistake was as egregious as the lack of coaching that I saw from Brett Brown. But I appreciate the call, Richard. Thank you so much for it. Let's go to Ron in Queens. You're live with Stephen A. Real quick, Ron, go ahead.
Stephen A., what's happening? I'm going to touch on the Knicks, and I got a question for you. All right, so obviously the Knicks never make the right decision. If you look at the one coaching job these two guys have between Mark Jackson and Fizdale, Fizdale came into a pre-established team. He obviously knows how to coach, but Jackson with the Warriors, he established that culture, the thing you're talking about. He made them a winning team.
Yep.
So I don't know what.
So what's your question?
No, but my question is on a completely different topic. And
all right, well, let me say this to you. Let me say this to you and to my listeners out there. I have a quote saying if the bottom line is Mark Jackson deserves a head coaching job. If I were running the Knicks, I would hire him. Do you know who said that?
Lacob?
Joe Lacob, the owner for the Golden State Warriors.
Yep.
He told me that. Told me that this morning. He said he would hire. He said no. He doesn't mince words. Doesn't get involved, or whatever the case may be. And obviously, he and Mark Jackson had their differences, but he doesn't negate the fact that Mark Jackson did an outstanding job as head coach of the Golden State Warriors and contributed to a culture that has bred 2 championships. I got to run, Ron. I'm running out of time. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Coming up in hour number 2, I've got a very interesting question for you regarding Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, and Kawhi Leonard. What am I talking about? Stay tuned. I'll explain. Hour number 2 of the Stephen A. Smith Show. Up next.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Hiring? Every business needs great people and a better way to find them. Something better than posting your job online and just praying for the right people to see it. ZipRecruiter learns what you're looking for, identifies people with the right experience, and invites them to apply to your job. These invitations have revolutionized how you find your next hire. In fact, 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just 1 day. And ZipRecruiter doesn't stop there. They even spotlight the strongest applications you receive, so you never miss a great match. The right candidates are out there. ZipRecruiter is how you find them. Businesses of all sizes trust ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs. Right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Stephen A. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Stephen A. ZipRecruiter.com/Stephen A. That's with a PH, not a V. That's ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Stephen A. Smith Show right here on ESPN Radio, coming at you as I love to do every weekday on ESPN Radio, 250 plus markets across the United States of America, from New York to LA and everything in between, including Houston, San Antonio, and West Palm Beach. The 3 markets added to the show over the last couple of weeks or so. Plus, ESPN Radio on Sirius XM, Channel 80. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Gentlemen, it's one of my favorite times of the year. The 2018 NFL schedule has been released for your team. The time is now to jump on tickets. Vivid Seats has you covered. the official ticket partner of ESPN. Download the free Vivid Seats app today to get your 2018 NFL tickets. Plus, get the feeling of being rewarded with gold status at Shell with the Fuel Rewards program. Download the Fuel Rewards app, join and start saving 5 cents a gallon today. I teased this going out of the first hour of the Stephen A. Smith Show right here on ESPN Radio. I brought up the names Kawhi Leonard, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James. What does that have to do with these NBA playoffs? Well, allow me to explain. As we watch these NBA playoffs unfold, we see LeBron James on another level, yet we look at his supporting cast and say to ourselves, there's no way in hell he's staying in Cleveland after this season. We look at the emergence of the Philadelphia 76ers and the Boston Celtics. One of them will be in the Eastern Conference Finals. The process for one of them is better than the other. We'll learn who as this series continues to unfold. But the fact that it's even debatable brings in Kyrie Irving into the equation. Why? Because Boston is up 2-0 in this Eastern Conference semifinal series against the Philadelphia 76ers. They are en route to yet another appearance in the conference finals, and they are doing this without the services of Kyrie Irving. Because a guard by the name of Terry Rozier is flat out balling. Because Marcus Smart is a pit bull and one of the roughhouse individuals that exist in the NBA today. Because Al Horford is an experienced veteran. Because Morris can ball. Because Jason Tatum is a legitimate candidate for Rookie of the Year honors, considering the way that he has performed. Not to mention the Aaron Baines and other guys that have come off the bench to produce for them. Where am I going with all of this? I didn't even mention Jaylen Brown because of that hamstring injury, but he's a young stud on this team whose future is incredibly bright. When he's on the floor, they ball because he is a baller. They are fearless. They ain't scared of anybody. They come at it. They can shoot. They defend. They do it all. And this is without Kyrie Irving. So why is Kyrie Irving coming up now? Particularly as these playoffs unfold. It's very, very simple, ladies and gentlemen. Because of Kawhi Leonard. In case you've missed the news, Kyrie Irving and the San Antonio Spurs don't seem to be on the same page. Kyrie Irving was going to come back to be supportive of the team upon Greg Popovich losing his wife after a long battle, after she long battled an illness. God rest her wonderful soul. Our prayers and thoughts continue to be with Greg Popovich, the great championship coach that he is, and a good man. And we wish him nothing but the best. Him and his family, his children, his grandchildren, and beyond. He's married to her for 4+ decades. I think about him every day. Having said all of that, Kawhi Leonard is still not on the same page as the organization. Kawhi Leonard reportedly has some interest in departing from San Antonio. If this is indeed true, think about the tentacles that come associated with this story. If you are Boston, and you end up winning this series, and Terry Rozier continues to shine, particularly in fourth quarters, balling the way that he balls, you may not need Kyrie, who I think is great, and I would want to hold on to, by the way, because he's a franchise caliber guard. But wait, as presently constructed, with the return of Gordon Hayward being expected, with first-round picks on the horizon, with the nucleus of the squad you already have in place, along with the ability to get Kawhi Leonard potentially. Ladies and gentlemen, I put this out on my social media pages. I'll throw this out for you guys. I mentioned it on First Take as well. If you had the opportunity to, would you trade Kyrie Irving for Kawhi Leonard? If you're Boston. If you're San Antonio, would you trade Kawhi Leonard for Kyrie Irving? If you're San Antonio. What would you do? Would you trade Kawhi Leonard for Kyrie Irving? Or if you're Boston, would you trade Kyrie for Kawhi? I throw that out because if you're San Antonio and you want to lose your star player, wouldn't it behoove you to get a star in return? If you're Boston and Rozier's balling the way that he's balling and being paired well with a Marcus Smart and a Jaylen Brown, with Tatum in the lineup, with Gordon Hayward in the lineup next year, with an Al Horford in the lineup, what if you added Kawhi Leonard to the mix? Brought Jason Tatum off the bench. How formidable will Boston be then? And if you want to do that, and Boston became that juggernaut, if you're LeBron and you wanted to stay in the Eastern Conference, where else could you end up going other than Philly? Who, by the way, has cap space to get you. You're a free agent. They don't have to trade for you. They get to pair you with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. What would you do? Now, me personally, I think Kawhi Leonard is better suited for Philly than LeBron is. As crazy as that sounds. Where's my evidence? Last night, Ben Simmons is a superstar in the making. The man had 1.0 for 4 shooting. He can't shoot from the perimeter. Boston literally plays 5-on-4 defense. They dare this man to shoot perimeter shots. They dare him to do it. So if you're LeBron, how does that help Ben Simmons? Because LeBron wants the ball in his hands, but Ben Simmons has the ball in his hands. More importantly, Ben Simmons needs the ball in his hands to make things happen because he's not a scorer yet anyway. And LeBron wants the ball in his hands in order to do something. So one could argue LeBron might actually get in his way. And if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, why would you want anything to get in the way of Ben Simmons? But then again, you could take the mentality, well, damn it, if we lose this series to the Boston Celtics, hell with that, we need LeBron, who's the greatest in the world, who's box office. And oh, by the way, if he has the ball in his hands, it will help the maturation of Ben Simmons. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. You can look at it a multitude of ways, but you see how interesting this is getting? Because, ladies and gentlemen, the Toronto Raptors built the squad that they thought could beat LeBron. So the impediment to their success, the roadblock to prosperity for them has been LeBron James. So they try to build a team to beat him. Houston, in their eyes, their roadblock to success and prosperity is the Golden State Warriors. So what did they do? They got rid of Kevin McHale. They got rid of Jerry B. Bickerstaff and that interim coach tag. And they brought in Mike D'Antoni. And when they brought in Mike D'Antoni, and he implemented his high-octane offense, and it was all about pacing and spacing and perimeter shooting to the point where they're the only team in the league that shot more threes than twos. They had the best record in basketball. And people were walking around believing they have a shot to beat the Golden State Warriors. Why? Because that's Daryl Morey's publicized target. They want Golden State. Now, they got to get past Utah now, which ain't going to be that easy. But they want Golden State. That's what they want. That's who they want. So understanding that, knowing that that is the reality, let's be very, very clear. Teams react to more successful and better teams within their own conference. And if Boston wins this series, who knows what that's going to force Philly to try and do? Who knows what that's going to compel LeBron James to do? And if you're one team who's sitting pretty, it's Boston because you're rife with assets. You can stand pat and do nothing. You can move Kyrie. You can keep Kyrie and try to package Rozier and picks or whatever the case may be. You can do a lot of different things. If you win, the world is your oyster if you're Danny Ainge. If you lose and you're Philly, you may have to make a move. Because all of this noise about the process goes right out the window. Because somebody's standing in front of you that implemented their own process. And they pimp slapped you along the way. That's the deal here. That's what we're looking at when we're talking about the ramifications of Boston beating the Philadelphia 76ers. Where else can LeBron go? Are you really going to go to L.A. with that young crew thinking that you're going to legitimately compete for a title with Houston and Golden State in the West? Or are you going to take your preferred path of least resistance, which is in the Eastern Conference, but not necessarily anymore because Boston and Philly would be there waiting. The likelihood is you join one of them. The likelihood is the team you join is Philadelphia because Boston might not have enough to get you. Now that they gave Gordon Hayward $130 million, but Philly does. It's all very, very interesting. All very compelling. Houston, LA, Philadelphia seems to be the destinations that LeBron James would entertain above all else. Got my boy Champ that's listening on the line. That's why I'm not letting him on the show today because he get on my damn nerves. Did anybody hear me say you trade Kawhi? I did not say that. But he misquotes me. That's why I ultimately keep talking, I'm going to block him. Even though he's my friend and I love him, I can't stand folks that misquote me. I never said San Antonio should trade anything. I'm throwing it out. If you're San Antonio, what do you do? If you're Boston, what do you do? If you're LeBron, what are you going to do if Philly loses this series and Boston is strong? What are you going to do? What if Houston loses? Because if they win, they don't need LeBron. If they lose, yes, they do. These are the kind of things that I'm talking about. Same brother Champ, along with one of my other boys, Will, sit up there and say, oh, you know what? Gordon Hayward is the odd man out. Well, if you're San Antonio, Gordon Hayward's coming off that nasty injury. Why am I going to trade Kawhi for him? His injury was nastier than Kyrie's. All I'm saying is it's all speculative, but it's something worthy of thinking about. Because these are the kind of things that could unfold this summer. We ain't talking about what will happen. We're talking about, these are the options teams are going to have available to them. But people like Champ and my boy Will and a couple of others, they're hard-headed. They don't listen. They're wannabes who think they know everything and the rest of us know little. That's why I'm on the air and they're listening. There's levels to this. 888 say ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. I can say that about them because I love them. Y'all can't because they'll outshine y'all in basketball knowledge any day of the week. So don't even try. Champ is that dude. So is Will. So are a few of my other brothers, my other boys. They know their basketball. They just don't know it more than me. 888 say ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. On to a particularly serious subject that I cannot avoid. We learned that some kind of race summit is going to take place involving President Donald Trump sometime in the very near future, and that Colin Kaepernick and Kanye West has been invited. Let me make this simple, and I'm not going to belabor this point because this is a sports show and I don't need to go this far. What I will tell you is that I have absolutely no problem with the President of the United States being a part of a race summit. Regardless of how you may feel about him, he's the most powerful man in the world. He's the President of the United States, and he is in position to impact and make a difference if he so chooses. I think anybody in that kind of influential position should be a part of sensitive subjects like this, particularly a race summit. I have no problem with it. I definitely am a proponent of Colin Kaepernick being involved in the race summit because Colin Kaepernick making the sacrifice that he has made, knowing that his position was controversial and unpopular and still willing to stand his ground, which is more than some of us would do. Even though I don't necessarily agree that it's the wise move for him to make, I still don't denigrate him for it. There were no laws that were broken when he protested. The NFL did not prohibit you from kneeling for the national anthem. If they did, then I would say you signed a contract, obey the rules. But they did not do that. So I don't have a problem with Colin Kaepernick, who has shown his figurative muscle in this matter, being a part of a race summit with the president. I have no problem with it. And if the president welcomes him on board, kudos to the president for inviting Colin Kaepernick, because we know what Colin Kaepernick's position is about him. Kanye West, the artist, music artist, genius, whatever you want to call him, has been invited as well. That is where I pump the brakes. Kanye West went on TMZ and said that slavery was a choice. I don't know how he can come back from that. I got people calling me, telling me he's dead to them. They'll never listen to his music again. They don't want anything to do with the man. I would tell you that Van Lathan, that guy for TMZ who undressed him, I could not have said it more eloquently myself. I will tell you that I'm completely saddened and ashamed by the words that came out of Kanye West's mouth. Kanye apologized to him. The people he owes the apology to is our ancestors who were murdered and maimed and raped. To sit up there and to say that that was a choice, I've never heard a more insensitive thing come out the mouth of a black person in my life. It was disgraceful. Having said all of that, that is what it is. The only part that I'd like to say, I was debating this with my man Max Kellerman, and I don't want to sit up there and undress Max because there's nothing to undress him about. He did nothing wrong. Max is my brother. I got love for Max Kellerman and Molly as well. But like I said on the air to them, I want to say to all of you out there who try to dissect and sort of explain what Kanye West must have meant. No. Hell with what he meant. Hell with what's inside of his soul. We can't legislate that, nor can we depict or we don't know. What we know is what he said. And I would simply say this statement, as I said to Max and Molly on First Take this morning. If a white Jewish person went on the air and said that the Holocaust was a choice, how would the Jewish community react to them? We all know the answer to that, and we would support the Jewish community because they'd be absolutely right. If somebody from the Catholic community sat up there and said that those who have been victimized by you know what in the past, that was a choice, what would Catholics the world over have to say about that? Knowing the answer to that, what am I or any black person supposed to say and feel about what came out of the mouth of Kanye West? I'll leave it at that. 888-SAY-ESPN is the number to call up. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Back to the calls we go. Cornelius in Texas, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Yes. Thanks for taking my call, Stephen A.
Go ahead, bro.
Do you think Brett Brown is giving T.J. McConnell too much respect by playing him over Fultz?
Well, I don't know if that's the way I would surmise it. T.J. McConnell came in there and played well. He's your point guard. Markelle Fultz is not really a point guard per se. He's a scorer who can play point for you occasionally when his game is polished enough. I think in a game like this, you needed him to come in and to give you some of that offense that he has at his disposal. I think that's what you needed, personally. That's me.
Okay. One more question?
Go ahead.
Do you think Mike D'Antoni could have took the Warriors to the finals?
Mike D'Antoni?
Yes, sir.
No. I'm not convinced of that because I've never seen, up until this year, I've never seen any indication that he was remotely as interested in defense as I know Steve Kerr is. And what Mark Jackson established before Steve Kerr arrived. As Steve Kerr has explained to us on many occasions, Steve Kerr came in there with the Golden State Warriors already having a defensive identity because of what Mark Jackson established. He tweaked things offensively, spreading the floor a little better, getting more movement of the basketball and more movement without the ball by those on the court, maybe more so than Mark Jackson. But the defensive principles that he wanted were already in place when he arrived. Steve Kerr was on the record having said that.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate the call. Chris in L.A., you're live with Stephen A. What's up? Talk to me.
Hey, Stephen A. Real quick to answer your question about the Kawhi-Kyrie potential trade. Yep. I would say no, it would be bad for both. Number one, Kyrie, as good as Terry Rozier's playing, he's not proven. Obviously, we know what Kyrie did in the finals against Golden State. So Terry Rozier still needs to show himself against those top guards who will potentially come out the West. And as far as Kawhi, I believe that you need a guy like that to uphold what's coming with the onslaught that would come at you with the KDs, the LeBrons, the Hardens, the Westbrooks.
I don't understand your point. What are you saying exactly? That you wouldn't move Kawhi if you were San Antonio, or you wouldn't move Kyrie if you were Boston?
I wouldn't do that trade, period. I wouldn't trade Kyrie for
either
Kawhi
side.
Leonard.
So you're saying from either side?
That's correct.
Got it. Go ahead.
That is correct. Okay. But I didn't want to touch on that. I'm only answering the question you asked. But as far as what I saw last night, if you don't mind, real quick.
Go ahead.
I think nobody brings up the terrible job, in my opinion, that Dwayne Casey did for the Raptors. You look and I'm listening to Hubie Brown, Coach Hubie Brown, who obviously called the game, is saying the same thing I'm saying to my television when I'm watching it. He's saying if Dwayne Casey is not going to run a double team at Kevin Love or LeBron James, he's not going to sub a guy in. You keep giving him the ball. And I sent out a tweet as well. I'm like, why isn't Dwayne Casey getting the ball at Kevin Love's hand? He's letting him play one-on-one with guys like CJ Miles.
I'm not going to lie to you. I don't mind him with the one-on-one situation with Kevin Love. I mind him in a one-on-one situation with LeBron James. You have got to see, to me, you make someone else beat you. You have got to get the ball out of LeBron James' hands at all costs. That's what you have to try and do. But Toronto's incapable of doing that.
I agree, but after that, Stephen A., if you listen to what Shaq said, if you don't let LeBron beat you, can't let Kevin Love do that as well. And I agree 1,000%.
But what I'm trying to say to you is the only reason you give the ball to Kevin Love is because he's in a one-on-one situation. If not that, then LeBron James would have took it himself. And so what you're saying is you're having to make a choice between Kevin Love and LeBron James. That's the problem. And you also have to remember what the original intent was. Siakam and all of these other guys, whether it's a DeRozan or Siakam coming off the bench or what have you, a Fred VanVleet spreading the floor and giving you perimeter shooting. The reality is that Toronto thought this was the best that they were built to defend against LeBron in Cleveland. Here's the big problem. You can't have Siakam and VanVleet on the floor at the same time. That's your problem. Because VanVleet spreads the floor offensively to make things happen. The problem is when you have him on the floor, either DeRozan or Siakam or Lowry, they're off the floor. And Lowry and VanVleet are too miniature. So if you had DeRozan on the floor with Siakam and VanVleet, Lowry's out. If you had Siakam and DeRozan on the floor with Lowry, then VanVleet is out. And you need all four of them. And even that's pushing it. That's your problem.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that, Stephen. And real quick, I want to touch on.
I gotta go. Hurry up. Hurry up.
Yes. So I think that Brett Brown made a mistake by leaving Ben Simmons, by bringing him back in and taking TJ McConnell out the game.
You can make that. You can make that argument, Chris, and I appreciate it, man. I got to run. Thank you. You can make that argument, but here's the reality. I'm taking McConnell out because it's Ben Simmons. What I'm not going to do is sit up there and bench Markelle Fultz for an entire game. I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to do that.
Washing my nose, oh yeah.
I'm a shower curtain, and I do one thing. Keep water from leaking everywhere. So you see why I feel useless compared to Geico, who does so much more. Like, not only could Geico save you money, but they've been around for over 75 years. And they give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or on the Geico app. And they've got a 97% customer satisfaction rating. They do all this while I have to listen to this chucklehead. Oh, good, he stopped.
Washing my toes.
Oh, great, an encore.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
888-SAY-ESPN is the number to call up. That's 888-729-3776. Getting jiggy with it. Na, 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 na. Na, 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 na. Getting jiggy with it. Jiggy in Utah. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, player?
Hey, what up, Stephen A? Hey, I wanted to bring up that Jazz-Houston series. I'm out here in Utah, man. We're loving it out here.
No problem.
What I wanted to say, though, is our coaching staff is unbelievable. After that first game one, I thought, no way
Quinn
the
Snyder,
Jazz
man.
going to have a chance with these guys.
Quinn Snyder.
We adjust in game two, and that just goes to show you that game two, that was one on coaching. Hold
on. I got to tell you this. Do y'all realize in Utah how special y'all are to have Quinn Snyder?
Oh, and Igor, mind you, he's going to be Phoenix next year, too. He's awesome as well.
What a tremendous coach he has been this year. He really, really has. I got to give major props to Coach Snyder. He's really done a phenomenal job. And those guys play together. They play within themselves. And Houston better be careful. Let Donovan Mitchell get hot and watch what happens. Let him get hot. You better be careful. But go ahead, Jiggy.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, we've won the last 5 out of 6 quarters, and that was all in Houston. You look at the second half of the first game, we outscored them the third and the fourth. Came in game 2, outscored them the first, second, lost third, won the fourth.
Jiggy, you've been on hold, bro. You're telling us something we know. Tell us something we know.
Okay, so all I was going to say, Houston fans, don't be surprised. We have a chance, and I just want to give credit to Quinn Snyder. And also, thanks for having Mitchell's back on the Rookie of the Year, man. I've been listening to you all the time. So
I appreciate it.
I'll let you go, man. Thanks for taking my call.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, but I don't believe I don't believe Utah's winning this series. I believe in James Harden. He's my MVP. I believe in CP3. I believe in Clint Capella. I believe in Trevor Ariza. I believe in Eric Gordon. I believe in Mike D'Antoni. I do not believe that Houston is losing this series. I think it'll get interesting. I think Utah might go up 2-1. And obviously at that moment, Houston will be on high alert. And then they're going to run them out of the series. But until that happens, stay tuned. Stay tuned. Let's go to Corey in Alabama. You're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, man.
What's going on, Stephen A?
Talk to me. Go ahead.
How you doing, my brother?
I'm good. Talk to me. Go ahead, man. You live on the air.
Okay, we need to talk about something very serious, my brother. We need to bring up, set aside sports for a minute. We need to bring up the Kanye West.
Stop right there. Have you been listening to the show?
I have been listening to
I just finished talking about Kanye West for 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, but you haven't had a caller like me.
Well, don't talk. Well, listen, brother, it's not your show. It's mine. So make your call. Make your point. You wasted a minute already. Go ahead and make your point.
We know it's your show, but listen to me. With all due respect, what's your problem with Kanye West and what he had to say, what he said on TMZ?
I'm not going to even answer that question. What's your point?
You're only looking at it from one point of view.
You're damn right I am.
From your perspective.
What's the name of the show?
I understand.
It is my perspective.
You have to do. I understand what you have to do.
Hold on. What does that mean? What do you mean by that? What do you mean you understand what I have to do?
You know.
What is it that I have to do?
You know.
Goodbye, man. Have a nice day. Bye. I'm not listening to that nonsense. He had an opportunity to express his point. You're going to tell me what I have to do? I don't have to do a damn thing. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And I got 25 years in this business that shows that that's exactly what I do. Ain't no pretense going on here. Nobody puts feelings in my soul. Nobody makes me think or makes me feel any way. I do this. And if you think for 1 second, or Corey or anybody else in Alabama or any place in this country, that these feelings that I express are not mine, you show me a scintilla of evidence, and I will resign as radio host of the Stephen A. Smith Show. I mean what the hell I say. And I say what the hell I mean. Love me, hate me, whatever in between. Make no mistake. I'm real. I say what the hell I feel. And I mean it. That's why he got a damn dial tone. If you don't believe that I'm authentic and I say what I mean and I mean what I say, and you want to call up here and say you know, turn the damn channel. What you listening for? Nobody asked you to call up to this show. Nobody asked you to approach and call up and talk to me. I'm not the one. What's my problem with Kanye West? A black man that's saying that slavery was a choice? I got to explain that to you?
Guess what?
You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it.
Baseball season is underway. Tune in tomorrow for an NL Central rivalry as Anthony Rizzo and the Cubs visit the St. Louis Cardinals. Presented by Barbasol Razors. Coverage begins at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say this before I get back to the calls. That kid from Alabama that I hung up on. First of all, I'm not going to entertain such an ignorant discussion. Secondly, and more importantly, one of the biggest things that annoy me about this radio show, and the reason I asked the name on it, is because you don't get to just sit there and allude to stuff. Say what you got to say. For 1 full minute, he sits up there and like, well, you know. and we going to have this discussion. Well, I just had it 10 minutes ago. Rather than, you taking your time. Thousands of people calling to the show. You taking your time getting to your point. It ain't your show. It's my show. And I appreciate you being a part of it. But you got to get to your point. He should have come right out the blocks and said what he had to say. He'd have had a chance. But he didn't. Because he was dancing. Because he didn't know what the hell he wanted to say. Let's be clear about that. Back to the calls we go. Max in L.A., you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Stephen A., can't agree with you more on that. I think that dude's Exhibit A, that what Kanye had to say is so problematic, it's so profoundly ignorant. And the irony that guy's from Alabama, just, don't get us started, right? Real quick before I get my thing, go Yankees. How about our Yankees? Looking great.
Yeah.
My question is, the way LeBron's playing right now, it's like Superman. But, I don't think Cleveland's going to be filling out the Justice League, if you know what I'm saying. So you think the way he's playing right now, this makes it more likely that he is going to move on from Cleveland because he's not.
I don't think it's about the way he's playing. I think that the way the roster looks, he knows deep in his heart, championship ain't a part of the equation with this team. Not against the elite teams in the NBA. He knows that. And as a result, he's going to connect himself with an elite team. Based on the roster that I'm seeing, I would be shocked at this point in time if LeBron James elected to stay in Cleveland. I'd be shocked.
Do you think the Lakers have a good shot at this guy at this point?
I think they have a decent shot, but I think Houston and Philadelphia probably have just as good of a shot. It all depends on what LeBron, the businessman, wants to do. He's got 2 homes in California, in L.A., for crying out loud. 2 homes and worth over $20+ million. So, I mean, that's probably where he's going. But I got to run. I appreciate the call, man. Thank you. LJ in Houston, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me, LJ.
What's going on, Stephen A? First of all, I just want to congratulate Fizdale for coaching, even though I understand what you say about Mark Jackson. But if he didn't get that New York job, Mark Jackson's not getting another coaching job, man. He might as well just
It's starting to look that way. It's starting to look that way to me, LJ. It's starting to look that way with me, and that saddens me. Go ahead. By the way, Joe Lacob was like, listen, I spoke to him this morning. He was like, look, man, Mark Jackson should have been the coach. He said, I'm not poo-pooing anybody, and he certainly wasn't down-talking a fellow owner in James Dolan. He's just saying that Mark Jackson is a good coach that would have done a great job in that particular market, and I have to give him credit for what he helped establish here. That's what he said to me this morning.
Well, as far as us, man, he can stay at ESPN and keep commentating. He does a great job at that anyway.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Tonight, it's a pivotal game for the Rockets, Stephen A. And I asked you a couple of days ago about should Kevin Love be that second player that LeBron James need, and he showed up last night. Now, we went and got Chris Paul this season. Should he be that second player that could contribute with James Harden so James Harden won't always have to be the savior? Chris Paul didn't have 15 turnovers in 2 games this series, man. That is highly unlikely of Chris Paul.
Well,
so do you feel he needs to show up better?
Well, he's got to play better, no question about it. But I think that Chris Paul, he's got to play better. But in the same breath, those other role players got to step up as well. One man is not going to beat the Utah Jazz. I can tell you that. LJ, I got to run. I appreciate the call. But one man is not going to beat the Utah Jazz. Even if it's the great James Harden, you're going to need more. Tony in West Palm. New City carrying the Stephen A. Smith show. Tony in West Palm, you're live with Stephen A. What's going on? Talk to me, man.
What's going on, Stephen A?
Go ahead, buddy.
Peace to you first. Peace to you first off. Yo, shout out to Utah and Donovan Mitchell. I had to. You know what I mean? Like, dude right there, yo, crazy. Got a Knicks fan over here, 30-plus years, loving the Utah Jazz this year for their spectacular run. And, yo, you know what? Crazy enough, I'm going to say they're going to take the Golden State Warriors.
All right.
You know what I mean?
You sound like you working out. You sound like you running on the beach. You think that the Utah is going to take the Golden State Warriors. They got to get by Houston first. I can't see that happening. But we'll talk later, Tony. Thanks for the call. And thanks for West Palm Beach for carrying the Stephen A. Smith show. Much love to y'all. I really appreciate it. Jones in Montreal, you're live with Stephen A. Real quick, Jones. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Stephen A., and we do love you, no matter what the detractors have to say.
Thank you, bro.
A couple of quick points. Thank you for the Mahomes interview this morning.
Yep.
First take, enjoyed that. Second of all, my problem with the Toronto and Cleveland game is, why is Toronto not making LeBron uncomfortable? He's being able to do what he wants, where he wants, when he wants.
Because it's Toronto. It's Toronto. LeBron, was I right in saying that LeBron silenced the country? Because Toronto's the only NBA team in Canada. LeBron, was I right in saying that LeBron silenced the country? Because I imagine all of y'all Canadians looked at that and said, damn, here he is again. I imagine y'all did that, Jones.
Well, hold on. I'm not a Toronto fan. I'm not rooting for them or against them.
I'm talking about where you live. I'm talking about where you live. That's all.
Right. No, I got you.
Right.
Toronto is shook up right now, boy. They definitely got shook up.
Gotcha.
But my thing is it Dwayne Casey losing the team? Because it feels like that. Because this is the third time around.
Jones, I got to run. I appreciate the call. My answer to your question is simple. It always feels like that whenever they're going against LeBron. Because when it comes to LeBron against the Toronto Raptors, he has their number. They are a better team collectively, but they can't deal with him. He paralyzes them. He demoralizes them in ways that he doesn't do to any other team. The Indiana Pacers were competitive for that entire 7-game series, despite 2 40-plus games for LeBron. Look at what has happened to Toronto. I can't wait for these NBA playoffs. Warriors, Rockets, they win later. Enjoy your...
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.